All right. Hello, everyone. I'm back to streaming, and today we're going to be painting a. Hello, everyone. I'm back to streaming, and today we're going to be painting a. There we go. Be painting a Reaper Miniatures Yeti. I've cleaned him up, filled in some gaps right here around his neck, and gave him a primer coat of black Steinlerez mixed with some Monument dark gray blue. I have here on my palette. So let's get to work. Hope everyone's doing well on this Sunday evening. All right, so he's looking pretty dry. All right, let's see here. Let me think about it here a bit. Let's see how I want to do this. All right, we're going to start with a dry brushing of some dark warm gray, building up through some bright warm gray. These are all ProAcryl paints from Monument and Creature Caster, and then add some ivory, and then pick out some details and such. If you have any questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat. If anyone's watching and would like to say hello. Any questions, just go ahead and pop them in the chat. Anyone's watching and would like to say hello. Alright, so I'm going to start with a dry brush of all over with the dark warm gray. Just get a little bit of paint on, get some paint on your brush, wipe it all off until there's practically nothing. There's still some residue on there. So dry brushing is great for, hopefully you can see that, or fur texture, which he has a lot of. So I'm just dragging the brush across. Nothing too fancy. You want to drag your brush across, the fur's going this way, and I'm dragging it perpendicular to that, so the raised areas catch the paint. It's kind of hard to see it because it's a dark color, but we want to work from a dark color up to a lighter color. Kind of hard to see it because it's a dark color, but we want to work from a dark color up to a lighter color. Just going all around the model here. And just building up that color here. Alright, so you can kind of see some of that gray on there. Alright, so we're going to slowly add in, we're going to do some bright warm gray, which is a nice pale gray tone. I'm not going to clean my brush because that's okay to have some of that remaining dark warm gray in there. And it just mixes together, which is okay. Gives it a nice blending effect.
Dark warm gray in there. It just mixes together, which is okay.
So this I'm not going to be so vigorous with the dry brushing. Just concentrate on the more raised areas, coming down to the light. So I have quite a lot on my brush, but I wipe off practically all of it off on the paper towel here.
Quite a lot on my brush, but I wipe off practically all of it off on the paper towel here.
Then we start to get some color on there. These are a really great model. Quick and easy. Get them ready for your next adventure.
Next adventure.
Just slowly build up that color. I don't want to get into the recesses. I want to keep that dark.
Slowly build up that color. I don't want to get into the recesses.
But if I get in there, I'm going to go back with some darker shade, darker color and shade, and then add in that.
Darker shade, darker color and shade, and add in that.
I want it brighter up here on top where the light's hitting and darker on the bottom, but I still want this color to be all over.
I want it brighter up here on top where the light's hitting and darker on the bottom, but I still want this color to be all over.
And just going over the same area with the same color, you can build up the richness of it. So you can sit there with the main, your highlight color and just keep going over smaller and smaller, higher up in the model and building up that color.
Your highlight color just keep going over smaller and smaller, higher up in the model, building up that color.
Okay, we're going to start adding some ivory. To it. I'm just doing the same thing. Just slowly building up that highlights on those raised areas with the dry brushing.
Just doing the same thing. Slowly building up the highlights on those raised areas with the dry brushing.
So this, I'm being more control to where I'm applying the highlights. And just getting more of the raised areas here. Right here on his pectoral there, and his shoulder. So just going back and forth with the brush. This is just a cheap craft brush.
Just going back and forth with the brush. This is just a cheap craft brush.
Just building it up on his belly there, his leg. And you can see where the highlight's going to come, looking at it under my lamps. So up here I want it brighter, and then underneath down here it's darker. I'm just holding it straight up and just seeing where the light's catching it down here under his leg, and just getting the bottom end of that. His back is arched, so I want more highlight up here, not so much right in there. He's getting there. Alright, so we're going to go to our next highlight, which is the bright ivory. Not quite white. We're not going pure white here.
Highlight, which is the bright ivory. Not quite white. We're not going pure white here.
Because it would just be too bright in that sense for white. So keeping in mind a polar bear. If you ever seen pictures of a polar bear, they're not quite white.
Keeping in mind a polar bear.
So here I'm just keeping it more concentrated on his belly, just where it's hitting the light, catching the light. And focusing more on his face, make that a little bit brighter. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Anyone that comes in.
Hopefully you can hear me all right.
So this I'm keeping more towards the edges, just where the light's catching it the most. And then when I go back in with a darker shadow, that'll really pick it up, pick it out. Alright. Looking pretty good. Just building up that color real quick here. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush, because I'll be coming back to it in a bit. Alright, let's put on my magnifying glasses here. Alright, so we're going to go back in with a a bluish brown shading, and just adding some shading right in here. Just where it, under his arms, under his belly here, and his legs. So we got some dark gray blue. And some dark umber. Put a little bit of that onto the palette. And we're making kind of a darkish, not quite black, but a dark shade color. We're going to add some water in here so it flows nice and smooth. Test it on our hand. See how it flows. And just pull it into the recessed areas. adding that blue gives it kind of a cool temperature-wise to the warmth of the rest of the fur. We're also going to apply this over the toes and his arms, his hands, and his face. Toes and his arms, his hands, and his face. Still see some mold lines on it, but that's okay. I just did a quick cleanup of it before the stream, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'll just get in right here at his face. Around his arm, his mouth, his ears back here too, but like right in here in the shadow, I'm just trying to help establish that a little bit more under his chin, in the armpits. And this color's already giving some nice definition to just plain white and ivory on him. Hey! How's it going, Crimson? Hey! I'm back. It's a Yeti. How's it going? How are you? I'm back. It's a Yeti. How are you? Hope everything's going well in your neck of the woods. Hope everything's going well in your neck of the woods. Is it just taking one night? Well, I'm glad that you came on over and watched me paint again. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you came on over and watched me paint again. Yeah. Yeah, just working on this Yeti here. It's a fun little model. Yeah, just working on this Yeti here. Fun little model. So just working this color around on the legs, up in his bun, right in there. Alright. So just pushing this into where it's darkest areas. Yeah, he is a cool model. I don't remember the number of it, but he's one of the Yetis. I think there's like 2 or 3 of them on the site. Yeah, he is a cool model. So, he comes assembled. He's a bones model, and there was just some gap right here under the neck that I filled in real quick, and then just did a quick primer. But yeah, he's a cool model. No, this is just for fun. I picked it up in a set, and it's like, oh, I'll get to it once eventually, and it'll be a fun little experiment to work with on streaming our videos. And earlier today, I just thought, hey, I'm gonna try to get streaming back up and going. So So this is the first video back,
Earlier today, I decided,
first
hey,
streaming.
try to get the streaming back up and going.
So
So this is the first
I
video.
just needed a little test model, I guess, for the test stream. And he seemed pretty straightforward.
I just needed a little test model, I guess, for the test stream. And he seemed pretty straightforward.
Alright. Is the video a bit choppy? Okay. I'm using a Canon Vizia camcorder.
Choppy? Okay.
So
I'm using
it was the same
a
camera that I've used for making videos for Patreon and YouTube that I started doing.
It was the same camera that I've used for making videos for Patreon.
Is the color okay? It looks, I'm not sure if the color's right or not.
Is the color okay? It looks, I'm not sure if the color's right or not.
Yeah. Let's see here. It doesn't look like it's chopping and dropping frames, but we'll see.
Let's see here.
Alright, I'm looking at the status. Stream quality is good, no drop frames. So
Looking at the status. Stream quality is good, no drop frames.
alright. So now let's add some address or shade from Citadel. And we'll do that in the darker shadows.
Address or shade from Citadel. And you do that in the darker shadows.
Put some on here on the palette. And just in the deeper recesses, like under the chin and in the armpits. And I add some of this into the palms of the hands.
Add some of this into the palm of the hands.
Underneath his necklace here. And we'll just put this all over his face here.
Necklace here. Put this all over his face here.
And just paint it over the feet. Alright. So just getting into the deep recesses, making him look dirty. You know, I don't think he bathes as much as he should.
So just get in the recesses. Make him look dirty. I don't think he bathes as much as he should.
Alright. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and base coat the rest of the model and just see where we're at.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and base coat the rest of the model. And see where we're at.
Yeah, so we got some dark umber here on the palette. So we'll use that to paint his necklace here.
Here on the palette. We'll use that to paint his necklace here.
Make sure we get it all over. We're going to go ahead and paint the little stones on his necklace this color too, as the undercoat for the gray. And we'll dry brush over that. Maybe I might just paint those kind of like gems. We'll do that. Alright, so we'll go ahead and use this color for his teeth. And then we'll highlight that up with ivory. These little choppers. And his toenail. This will be the undercoat for all the bone and teeth. So we'll get his toes here. This will be the undercoat for all the bone and teeth. And his claws. And we'll go ahead and get his walking stick. Tree stump, whatever. Just making sure we have a good even coverage over it. Making sure we have a good even coverage over it. Alright. Okay. Is it still showing drop frames? Are you still in here, Crimson? Is it still showing drop frames? No? Are you still in here? It actually looks pretty good according to my status bar. So. No? It actually looks pretty good according to my status bar. Alright, so we're waiting for that to dry. Oh, I gotta get the claws on his hand here. Alright, so we're waiting for that to dry. Oh, I gotta get the claws on his hand here. There we go. Alright. There we go. Alright, let's go ahead and we'll paint the inside of his mouth. We're going to take some magenta mixed with some shadow flash for our base coat. Probably putting way too much on the palette, but that's alright. So roughly about a 1-to-1 mix. Excuse me. I'm gonna add some of that dark gray blue in here. There we go. It's dry in here. All right. So we're just going to paint the inside of his mouth and close his tongue. Get a nice purplish tone. And get his gums around his teeth here. There we go. I'm going to put some tan flesh on here. Frames. What do you mean by frames?
Tan flesh on here. Frames. Frames.
I might have to drop my frame rate. I'm at 60 FPS. That might be it.
I might have to drop my frame rate. I'm at 60 FPS.
Well, this is a test,
That might be it.
so I'll go back and I'll check it and see. I might have to change the frame rate on it. Drop it down.
Go back and I'll check it and see. I might have to change the frame rate on it.
Hold on a second.
Drop it down.
No?
No?
Yes. Yes, it's fun to be back. It's been a while. Hopefully I can,
Yes.
now that everyone's home, I can do some more
It's been a while.
streaming
Hopefully I can,
throughout the day.
everyone's
So,
home, I can do some more
alright, so we're going to add
streaming
our mixture here of the
throughout the day.
dark umber and the dark gray blue
Alright, so we're gonna add
for the skin tone.
a
And I'm going to start adding
mix
some
of umber and the dark gray blue
tan flesh
skin tone.
into it, just to lighten that up.
Adding some tan flesh into it.
Yeah, as a friend of mine, he kept bugging me. He's like, when are you going to get back on streaming? So
Yeah, as a friend of mine,
I finally succumbed to it and was like, alright, let's do it.
he kept bugging me. Like, when are you gonna get back on streaming?
Alright, so just adding a little bit of flesh tone to lighten it,
Alright, let's do it.
because even though it's like a dark,
Alright, so just adding a little bit of flesh tone.
like grayish tone,
Even though it's like a dark.
adding flesh tone to it will make it look more natural. So we're just hitting the raised areas on the face.
To it will make it look more natural. So we're just hitting
Alright,
raised
thank you for stopping by.
areas.
Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Alright, thank you for stopping by.
So just working around the model,
Talk to you soon.
highlighting the
Bye.
upper edges of the skin.
So just working around the model, highlighting the upper edges of the skin.
Here on the fingers. I'm guessing the front part is like all a claw there. So
Guessing the front part is like all a claw.
that's what I'm going with. That sounds good. It works for me.
That's what I'm going with. That sounds good.
So just doing little dash lines
Works for me.
to show like wrinkles and stuff on the texture on his arms, his hands. I mean,
Little dash lines.
got
Show
kind of a
wrinkles and stuff on
leatherly
his arms, his hands, I mean.
type texture. Try saying that 3 times fast. Jeez.
Leather type texture. Try saying that for
So just the top portion of the toes.
Just the top portion of the toes.
Alright. So we're just going to keep adding some tan flesh into that. And see how, it's like almost like a grayish
Keep adding some tan flesh.
gray skin.
It's almost like a grayish gray skin.
So just very small areas here to add those highlights.
Very small areas here. Add those highlights.
And I'm still using my big craft brush. It's got a nice point on it.
And I'm still using my big
So no need to switch to a smaller one.
point on it.
Using the bigger brush does help
Smaller one.
speed up the process of painting. So I don't have to keep going down and getting more paint.
Using the bigger brush does help speed up the process of painting. So I don't have to keep going down and getting more paint.
And just working my way around the model, just add, picking out those highlights.
And just working
And
my
just
way around
do,
the model.
2 to 3 over how much you want to do.
Just do, 2 to 3 over how much you want to do.
So we'll do one more. We'll see how that goes. Add more tan flesh into it. So you can see the progression of the colors
One more.
here on my palette.
Add more tan flesh into it. So you can see the progression of the colors here on my palette.
And just getting smaller, bringing it closer to the edge. Like right here on his forehead,
Closer to the edge.
right on the top there.
Right here on his forehead. Right on top there.
Raise bits on his hand.
Raise bits on his hand.
Over here, just adding more towards the knuckles.
Over here is adding more towards the knuckles.
Alright. Leave the brush. Alright, so let's go ahead and work on his teeth. So we're going to add some golden brown.
Golden brown.
And this I will be switching to a smaller brush.
And this I will be switching.
This is just a Winsor & Newton Series 7, number 1.
This is just a Windsor New
Add a
paint.
little bit into the dark
Series
umber,
7, number
the
1.
brown here.
A little bit into the dark umber.
Make sure I got a nice fine point. So about midway towards the tip, we want to keep that dark umber in the up in the gums, you know, to show plaque.
Dark umber in the gums, show plaque.
And we'll add some ivory into this to make it a little bit more white towards the tips.
Add some ivory into this. A little bit more white towards the tips.
So what I'm doing here is, say that's the base coat right here on my thumb. So I'm going about halfway down and just pulling it towards the tip of the tooth, leaving that brown reset in the recesses to show shadow. That actually showed up. Yeah, do it again with a brighter color. Like so. The claws are a little bit bigger, so it'll be easy to show. So right here. And this I'm just doing lines, you know, like a building a pyramid. Trying to show this here to the tip. That didn't work very well. I'm trying. I apologize if I rotate it and you can't see what I'm doing because of the camera angle and how I got to move the model around. Trying my best to show it. When I get the lighter colors, you can see it better. So just doing it like this. Like that. To show the texture of the bone of the nails.
Texture of the bone of the nails.
We'll get this claw over here. Okay. So now we're going to take some of this ivory and mix it into that previous color there. And then here we're just going so about halfway, just doing the same thing. Bringing it to that edge. You want to make sure that the paint's flowing really well off the brush. The teeth you don't really need to do it. I'm just bringing it to the tip of the teeth, the tusk.
The teeth you don't really need to
Here.
bring it to the tip of
Let's see if I can bring this down. There we go. That's better. There we go. That's better. And just keep on moving around on the model, going one spot to the other. Keep on moving around on the model, going one spot to the other. Can't forget his hand up here. Okay. Alright, so before I get too far with the teeth, let's go ahead and finish up the mouth.
Before I get too far,
Add some tan flesh into that mix of magenta and shadow flash. Just it's a small area, so I'm just adding little dots and stippling it in there. So just a little tap, tap, tap with it. And we'll add a little bit more. And just tap, tap, tap on the edge here. A little line here on the gums, kind of separate from the lip. And one more highlight, just a little bit more tan flush in there. And I'm going to do a final highlight of tan flesh on the very edges of the tongue. There we go. Alright. Take some of this primer, the black primer with the dark gray blue here, and we're going to blacken out the eyes. And just trying to do this around the mouth to paint in some of the recesses just to make it a little bit darker here. Paint in the nostrils. There we go. We'll get some ivory on the very tip of the brush. Make sure it doesn't have a whole lot of water in there. Get a nice point. And we'll paint the pupils, or the whites of the eyes, I should say. Just very lightly paint that. There we go. And we'll go back to our dark gray, blue, black mitts. Get a nice fine tip. Make sure there's not a whole lot of paint in it, but it's flowing well. We'll just find the center and try to dot the I in there. Maybe. It didn't work too well. I'll let that dry a bit and then I'll come back in with some ivory and touch that up. So while I'm waiting for that, we'll go ahead and paint some more of the teeth and claws. Add some more ivory to the previous mats. And we're just painting at the very edges here. Very tips of the teeth. And we'll go over to the claws. Down here on the feet. Can't forget this one up here. Alright. So let's get back into the eyeballs here. And we'll redo that. Paint some of the same color as his tongue right here on the top of under his eye. Gonna show the eyelid. Paint some of the same color as his tongue right here on the top of under his eye. Mix it into our skin tone. And just add some more highlights here. Just a little bit. Nothing too fancy. Alright. So I'll take this black, gray, blue color. Gonna help paint around the whites of the eye just to make it a little darker. An outline. And then we'll put a little dot right in the middle there. It's a bit off to the side. Wow, these eyes are... Sometimes I can get them right away. Sometimes it takes me a few turns. Sometimes I can get them right away. There you go. Alright. Okay, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to paint the leathers in a reddish brown color. Start with mahogany, burnt sienna, and then burnt orange. Just so they're different than the yellowish brown we have on there already. And get to try one of the new ProAcryl colors, the burnt sienna. Nice reddish brown tone. So we'll go ahead and re-base coat this. Making sure I don't get it on any of the fur. Yeah, that works. It's a little bit darker and nice contrast against the white fur. That works. Darker and nice contrast against the white fur. Alright, and here on his staff or stick, he's got a stone head here for clubbing, and then a little stone medallion. But the medallion's attached with some leather, so we'll paint that the red. Because the wood is trying to be kind of like a yellowish brown. So just using a smaller brush just to make sure I get, detail brush. I'm not getting this color all anywhere else. Exactly where I want it. Alright. Let that dry. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll go into a different area. Which is the stones and the wood. So we'll go to... What was this color? Oh, that was the warm gray. Actually, for the stones, we'll do dark neutral gray and bright neutral gray. And then final highlights on that would be the bright ivory.
Gray and bright neutral gray. Final highlights on that would be bright ivory.
I could dry brush these areas, but I'm just trying to paint on the rocky texture because they're so small. I don't want to take the chance of getting this color on areas I've already painted. Go ahead and paint the rock down here on the base. Starting with the base coat of the dark neutral gray.
Base coat of dark neutral gray.
On the stones on his necklace here. At least that's what I think they are. I think they're stones. That's what we're calling them.
At least that's what I think they are. I think they're stones.
And then we'll get this stone on the staff, or his club here. Twist the model around to make sure I get all the areas. All right. Just paint this around his eyes so they look more sunken in a bit. Okay, so we're going to let that dry a bit. That area is dry. And we'll give it a dark wash. So while we're waiting for that, let's add some more highlights to the fur. So back to the ivory. And now that now doing this with the brush and just doing some layering, that'll make it a little bit brighter than just with the dry brushing that I started with. So here I'm being a little more concentrated and cleaning up some of these shades here. So I'm not getting the whole top part of his belly, just the more prominent part where that's catching the light. And I'm starting about halfway on the hair and working my way to the end, keeping the recesses dark. So just little lines. Alright, so work around his beard, I guess is the best way of saying it, on his face. Alright, and there. It helps neaten it up. Using the tip, and also you can use the side of the brush. excuse me, to get those nice crisp lines.
Excuse me. Get those nice crisp lines.
So I'm just working right here on the beard. So I'm catching these hairs right here, then moving forward and keeping that dark right in between to help separate them.
Right here, then moving forward and keeping that dark right in between to help separate them.
Oops. And then right around his mouth. Right here. His mustache. His stash.
Stash.
And just framing the face here. Alright. I'm building up here on his shoulder.
Shoulder.
Alright, so before I go too far into it, let's go ahead and put a wash on the leather, wood, and stones using Adrat's Earthshade. Let's put it back up there so I don't accidentally knock it over.
Adrat's Earthshade. Let's put it back up there so
Just quick shading here, just to darken it up a bit.
quick shading here. Darken it up a bit.
Can't forget that little rock. And just painting down the wood here. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to finish adding more fur texture. There we go. That off. And that was the Citadel shade, Adrat's Earthshade.
And that was the Citadel shade, Adrat's Earthshade.
Alright, so just catching some raised areas on the fur here.
Catching some raised areas of the fur here.
Doesn't take much. And going back and redoing this helps clean it up in a sense, but also helps define that white coat.
Going back and redoing this helps clean it up in a sense, but also helps
And right here on the top of, I'm not going down underneath here, so I want to keep that still in shadow. So just hitting the raised areas, the upper portions of it. And then at the end here, the fur, some of it's come up over, it's on the palm of his hand, so we can actually touch that up. Try not to touch the wet shade here. I'm bracing my brush with my hand. Actually, off my thumb. And all I'm doing is this little slash marks. All right. He's looking pretty cool. I'm liking it. He's looking pretty cool. I'm liking it. Reaper Miniatures does make some very, very nice models. They're fun, just, you know, to do little quick paint jobs. They're fun, just, you know, do little quick paint jobs. Alright, so we're just going to catch some hairs here. And his underarm. Just where some light's catching that. So right here on the top of his leg. Go a little bit down here. Alright, I don't want to get down over here too much because that's in shadow. Always checking underneath with the light to see where my shadows lie. Always checking underneath with the light to see where my shadows lie. Alright. Just keep working that ivory all around. Be a little bit brighter on his head and shoulders in this area. So that'll be where the majority of the air, that's just the focal point of the model. So I'll add that as brighter colors there. See how this is going here. So I'm just rotating them around to see where I need to add some more highlights. Hello everyone, my name's Casey. So if you have any questions or just want to say hi, go ahead and post it in the chat.
Everyone. My name's Casey.
I'm painting a Yeti from Reaper Miniatures.
Or just want to say hi, go ahead and post it in the chat.
A little fun model to paint up.
From Reaper Miniatures.
A lot of fur texture.
Really fun model to paint up. A lot of fur texture.
Alright. We'll get some down here, just a little bit under the arm. Not going to be in complete shadow because I will be adding like snow, and like the sun shining off the base will reflect up. So there'll be just a little bit of highlights catching on his fur under his arms. So we're just doing a little bit of highlights in here. Just a little bit. We don't want to completely take away those shadows. Same over here.
Just a little bit. Completely take away those shadows.
Alright. Yep. Now we're going to switch to our bright ivory, which I have right here. And this is going to be concentrated right here on the face. And some other, just right in that area.
Concentrated right here on the face. Just right in that area.
So same thing, just small little hash marks, little dashes on the very edges here.
Hash marks. Little dashes on the very edges here.
Make them stand out a little bit more. Make it a little bit brighter right there.
A little bit brighter right there.
And getting the shoulders. And we'll just do a little bit on top of his belly.
Just do a little bit on top of his belly.
And right here on the knuckles too, why not? I did bring it down a bit, but that's okay. There. Alright, so let's go ahead. It's still kind of wet right there on the stone. Let's go ahead and start working on his staff or tree stump, whatever. So there it is. We're going to take some light umber. Add some water into it to make sure it's flowing well. Not too much. So we want to do some very fine lines here on it to show the wood grain. So same thing as with the fur. You're just doing little small hash marks, lines. The texture is already been sculpted very well, so I'm just following the sculpture. And you probably won't see too much of it, on the camera because it's still kind of dark. But when I add that's highlight color, the golden brown, you'll really start to see it. I mean, you can kind of see it. Yeah, you can see it. So just following the sculpt of the model and just painting in the wood grain, just little lines, keeping the dark umber in the shadows from the shade. Just little dashes. I'll rotate this around here. This part's going to be kind of hard to see. Just because of the angle, I apologize. There we go. I'll just get right in there. What's nice about with these bones models is they're quite flexible because of the material. So you can move it out of your way if need be. Oops. That's too thick of a line. Still wet. You can just wipe it off and erase it with your finger. So just working around the model. And just do some like irregular lines, you know, just little squiggle lines. Keeping that recess right in there darker. Oops, sorry about that. I'm out of camera there. So here I'm just doing little squiggly lines and such to show the bark texture. Bark, bark, bark. Alright. Rotate it so you can see it, and then I can reach it with the brush here. Alright, so now we're going to switch to our golden brown. And we're going to do the same thing, just fewer lines. Just make sure you have a nice fine point on that. And you don't want to cover up the light umber you just did. So you're just painting closer to the edge. Let's try to angle this so it can be seen here. There we go. So about halfway to that, what you just did. So right here, I did pretty much a full line of the light umber, and then just half of that is the golden brown. And if I wanted to go lighter, my next highlight would be half of that towards the edge. I want to make sure your paint is wet and flowing well for these fine lines. It just flows right off the brush. Oh, creeping off the frame there, sorry. I like this color combination for bark and wood texture. That yellow brown. Alright, so just little dabs here. Finish it off. Got some white on that. Alright. Make sure we're focused. So just little dashes to show texture. Texture highlight is what I like to call it. So just add a little bit down here. We don't want it too bright. Alright. Well, as you rotate the model around, you find areas that need attention. Alright.
Rotate the model around and find areas that need attention.
There we go. Okay. So now we'll just go ahead and do the leather straps and the stone, and he will be done.
Okay. So now we'll just go ahead and do the leather straps.
Alright, so the leather was this mahogany color right here. So we're going to add some burnt sienna. It's a new color, I haven't figured. Burnt sienna to that.
New color. Burnt sienna.
For our first highlight. And same thing, I'm just doing little slashes, hash marks to show texture. Makes it more visually interesting than just doing a line off the camera. Sorry, I zoomed in and I'm off my mark. Still pretty dark to the base coat, but the next one will really bring out that highlight. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see it here. But I don't want to jump straight to the brighter color because it would be too harsh of a highlight. All right. Excuse me. So now we're going to go to the straight burnt sienna. It's a lovely reddish brown color. And just hit the raised areas again. Just like with the wood and the fur texture. I'm just catching the more prominent raised portions of the sculpt. Dragging the brush across these little areas here. Quick highlights. So instead of getting one strand at a time, I'm getting like all three of them. Or just speeds up the process. There. Now, final highlight. Well, let's see how this is. This is the burnt orange. Let's see if I need to add another highlight after this. So just smaller and smaller towards the edge of it. Smaller and smaller towards the edge of it. And just catching those edges. Alright. Okay, I'm going to add some tan flesh into that burnt orange for a highlight. I don't want to add ivory because that will make it look pastel. So using the flesh tone with the reddish tone of it will make it look a little more natural. There we go. We'll get this necklace here. All right. He's looking really good. Really happy with it. All right, let's finish off the stone. So we'll take some of that dark neutral gray. I mixed some of the warm neutral. And we'll add some of the light neutral gray into that. And same thing, just little hash marks and dabbing to give it some texture. Real quick and easy. And it's really good if the area is smooth from the sculpt and you wanted to add some texture, just doing this little tapping motions and little quick slashes. Alright, so now we got the top of his club here. His stone weapon, I should say. Club here. Stone weapon, I should say. It's got like little divots and stuff in the stone, so we're just painting around that. Alright. Let's add more neutral gray into that color. bit brighter.
Neutral gray into that.
Do the same thing. Just smaller where you apply it. Smaller areas where you apply it.
Smaller. Where do you apply it? Smaller areas where you apply it.
Same here on the rock. Getting more, bringing it more towards the edge, where the sharp edges on the rock here is.
Bring it more towards the edge, where the sharp edges on the rock here is.
So now just pure light neutral gray. You can see it's very bright. Or bright neutral gray, I think is what it's called. Yep. Bright neutral gray. Bright neutral gray is the name of the paint
Yep.
color.
Bright neutral gray. Name of the paint.
And just doing the same thing, just bringing it more towards the edge. The upper portion of it.
The same thing, just bringing it more towards the edge.
Quick hash, slash marks. Let's catch that texture there.
Slash marks.
Alright, so I'm going to add some bright ivory into that color to make it really bright, really light, a bright highlight. And just to make this stone weapon stand out just a little bit more. Just a little bit on the bottom. Get the edge here. The other edge. The tip. And just a little bit here on this necklace. And on the rock down here. And then the rest, the base, I'm just trying to add some ground texture. Alright. Oh, forgot this right here. That's alright, we'll just make that really bright. Add a stone medallion or something on here. We'll just highlight that up with some bright ivory. And just add this color a bit on the very edges of the stone weapon. Kind of make it look chalky, almost. Alright. So I'm going to do a thin glaze of gray-blue. It's kind of like a powdery blue over the stone and his necklace parts to kind of make it look almost like ice. Kind of, sort of, hopefully. That's the goal. We'll just take a little bit of that and just thin it down. A lot of water. Like 4, 5, 6 brushfuls. And we'll see how thin it is. Brush it across. You can still see the stuff underneath it. Colors underneath it. Dab off the excess water. And it just gives it a kind of a bluish tint to it to make it where it's not so gray white like the fur. And it just shifts the color a bit. So now, I'm going to do the same thing with the dark gray blue. And do about 5 or 6 bits of water. It's not quite thin enough. You want to just tint the area. See how my thumb is just tinting the white, giving that kind of a bluish color there. And this I'm just going to push right into the recesses here. And this I'm just going to push right into the recesses here. Down north towards the bottom of on the necklace, right in there. Just to kind of give it a blue, like an icy tint. It looks like maybe it's like an ice weapon. Kind of give it a blue, like an icy tint. On the stone there on the base. All right. Yeah. All right. I like that. That looks good. Quick and easy Yeti. Ready to cause some havoc to your adventures. All right. So all I need to do on him is just finish the base. I'll just add some gravel and some snow. And you can see finished pictures on my website and also on my Facebook page. And just it's Holt Miniature Painting on Facebook, or KC Holt. So, all right. Thank you for Crimson Blades for stopping by. It's good to hear from him. And I'd say this was a successful test. So thank you very much
And I'd say that
for
it's
joining
a
me,
successful
whoever popped in.
test.
And there's
Thank
the
you very
Yeti.
much.
Alright, thank you. Have a good night.